Now, a lot of people say Islam is a religion of peace. I just watched President Bush give his presentation at the UN this morning. I don't know if many of you have seen it. I was still in my hotel room. And he was talking about how few radicals have hijacked the religion and are twisting the religion. You know, President Bush, sadly, is not only inarticulate, but ignorant. And that is a problem. That is a problem. As much as I commend him for instituting laws since September 11th to protect the country, I believe his political correctness is getting us in trouble. I believe we need the moral clarity and the courage to stand up in this country and be counted and speak the truth. If the most powerful man in America is afraid to speak the truth, who else is going to do it? He doesn't have to lie, but he doesn't have to say Islam is a religion of peace. There are other ways to deliver a message without empowering our enemy. And a lot of people say, well, Islam is a religion of peace. And you hear talking heads on television tell you, well, here are those verses in the Quran that are very peaceful. And yes, in the beginning of the Quran, remember how I told you Muhammad was trying to appeal to the Jews to accept him? And he borrowed a lot from the Christian Bible, the Jewish Bible? Well, when they did not accept him, he turned violent against them. So we see a transformation in the verses of the Quran. The earlier verses in the Quran coming out of Muhammad were peaceful about the people of the book. And when they refused to accept him after the year of the Hijrah, when he immigrated to Medina, this is when all the violent verses in the Quran started appearing. And in Islam, there is the law of abrogation, and nasakh wal mansukh. If there are two verses in the Quran contradicting each other, the latter verse wipes off the first verse, and the latter verse is the verse to be followed. It is called the law of abrogation. Anyone who has any remote knowledge of Islam, you don't have to be a scholar. All you need to study is a little bit about Islam. You'll learn about that very easy. It is very clear. And this is why when the radicals and the moderates get into a debate about Islam and the radicalism of Islam, the radicals always win the debate because the Quran, the law is on their side, while the moderates sit there and look at the radicals without knowing what to say. So, we are seeing now the rising of Islamo-Nazism all throughout the world. We are seeing now the same signs that we witnessed before World War II with Hitler raising a new generation of youth Nazis. We are seeing that happen in Islam right now. And this beginning to happen with funding from Saudi Arabia and from the Arab Gulf state. With the rise of oil revenues and profits, they are building these madrasas, and of course Saudi Arabia is leading the path, funding these madrasas, Islamic radical madrasas, all across the globe. Not only in Hamas in Gaza, not only in Lebanon, not only in Syria, not only in Iraq, not only in Pakistan or Iran, but all across the globe. There are Islamic Saudi-funded madrasas in 19 world capitals, including Washington, D.C. We in the United States have 225 registered Islamic madrasas operating in the United States, teaching 50,000 American Muslim students annually, with books provided by the government of Saudi Arabia. So what we are seeing is this brainwashing of the youth. And we have already seen what the result of that after what we witnessed, what happened in the Palestinian territory since 1993. We now see a new generation of Palestinians who live to die fi sabilillah, in the path of Allah, in order for them to become martyrs killing infidels. Look at what's happening in Lebanon with the election of Hezbollah. Look what's happening in Hamas with the election of Hezbollah. These are not only few radicals operating independently. These are terrorist organizations democratically elected by the majority in their countries. If elections were held today in Egypt, the Muslim Brotherhood will win the election hands down. If elections were held today in Jordan, the Muslim Brotherhood as well will win hands down, including Hamas. King Abdullah of Jordan has only 2% approval. Turkey is standing on a cliff. It can go either way. Look at the people in Turkey when they wanted to institute Sharia law, when the elections happened last year, how they took to the streets by the thousand. The moderates were frightened at the possibility of Sharia law being instituted. So these madrasas are a very major concern across the globe, including here in the United States. Now, I also talk in the book about the Muslim Brotherhood Project for North America. And they must be stopped. I dedicate a full chapter to the Muslim Brotherhood Project. So what is the Muslim Brotherhood Project? The project was written in 1982 by the Muslim Brotherhood as their manual, as their plan, their 100-year plan to infiltrate and dominate the West, to establish an Islamic government on earth. This is the title of their plan. And in the plan, they discuss tactics and ways on how they're going to infiltrate the West. We're talking 100 years. See, while we may have a very short attention span in the West, our enemy has plenty of patience. They're not thinking in a matter of days. They are thinking in a matter of years. Look at the guy that did the bombing of the trains in Spain before the election a few years ago. They found a note from him that he was avenging the fall of Indonesia. And people were thinking, what is he talking about? Yes, he's talking about 500 years ago. That's exactly what he was talking about. Well, we think in a matter of years, 3 years, they're thinking 100 years, 300 years, 500 years. Remember, Islam ruled the earth for 1400 centuries. The Islamic Empire ended less than 100 years ago. Our attention span is this short. So in the Muslim Brotherhood Project, what makes it very, very concerning and very, very worrisome is they not only talk about a military jihad, where we already know they are trying to bomb us, they are trying to kill us, commit suicide bombing all around the world. They're talking about a cultural jihad and a cultural invasion, working hand in hand, militarily and culturally. And all you have to do is look at Europe for the last 30 years. Europe has morphed from Europe into Eurabia. Look what happened in Europe just this past week. The institution of Sharia law as the Islamic law, parallel legal system governing Muslims in Britain, operating parallel to the British law. So the Muslim Brotherhood gives tactics as to how to infiltrate. They talk about maintaining the appearance of moderation, establishing Islamic organizations, charitable organizations, non-profit organizations, while working and raising money in the West to support the cause, back the Islamic cause of jihad around the world. They talk about building schools, building hospitals to infiltrate communities. They talk about putting up elected officials, infiltrating, appointing Muslims into positions of government, schools, public and civic organizations, so they can influence opinion and have voting voices. They give a detailed account on how to infiltrate. Work with progressive organizations who feel with you about your goal, the end goal. And sometimes when you look at how the ACLU is working with CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, you scratch your head and you think, how could these two organizations have possibly anything in common? One is very liberal, pro-gay marriage, pro-abortion, pro-women's right. And here you have an Islamic organization that all they want is Islam to take over, and they have not made that a secret. And then under Sharia law and Islam, gays should be killed, women should be beaten and raped. A woman is a man's property. Why waste an education on a woman? A woman can be married, or a girl could be married at the age of 9. After all, Prophet Muhammad married the girl at the age of 6 and consummated the marriage at the age of 9. But the reason why they're working together is because the Muslim Brotherhood has developed such a very smart plan, and they are implementing it worldwide, while the West is asleep. What happened in Europe with last week, Sharia law being implemented, did not happen overnight. You don't all of a sudden prepare a nation overnight to say, okay, we're going to accept Sharia law. We're going to accept that British girls born as British citizens can get married at the age of 9 years old, and we won't consider that pedophilia or child molestation. You don't get to that point by just, well, we planned it for a year. So we have seen how carefully they have done that in Europe. And we are seeing now the same signs in the United States. I